Good morning, y'all. We're getting ready to get started here shortly. I've got an amazing guest in studio on the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show live here on Tuesday morning. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Well, it's about that time. The Rutledge Perspective Radio Show coming your way this morning at 10 a.m. Central from the historic KCOH TV radio station, The Boost, at the corner of Alameda and Wichita in Houston, Texas. Come join me because we're going to chat about leadership and showing up and getting aligned and getting clear and taking action and voting and voting and voting and all of that stuff. So join me for some great conversation and a few laughs. And when we're done, be sure and head over to your favorite podcast platform or to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and subscribe to my weekly podcast, The Rutledge Perspective Podcast. Episodes drop every Wednesday, and they are short and sweet, commute-worthy. And I promise you'll get something out of every one that will help you shift your perspective. Because when you shift your perspective, you shift your circumstances. See you soon. So much going on, y'all. It's going to be a good day.
Let's climb it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's Tuesday morning, one of my favorite days of the week. It is a time when we can talk about stuff that matters. And we love having y'all here to do that. Here with the beautiful looking glass windows and fish behind me. Apparently. It is a brand new day. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show here live at KCOH TV radio station, The Boost, here in Houston, Texas. Historic Third Ward, the historic station, been around 65 years serving the community and the globe. I'm here with my guest, Diamond Young, and I'm going to introduce her to you here in a minute. And of course, my producer extraordinaire, Jerry P. Beasley, is in the house as well. And so as we always do, you're on the StreamYard, so make sure you give StreamYard permission so I can see your comments. And I appreciate that you guys are here. So thank you so much. And for those of you on Jerry's page, on the KCOH page, and Alexa and TuneIn and all that, welcome. We're going to get started. And first things first, y'all know, for me, it's always about voting. Can you see my vote pin? Right. Always about voting. So we have elections coming up, nothing this week, but next week, August the 2nd, we have some major primaries going on. So Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Maryland, Ohio, and Washington State. You guys have statewide primaries as well as some special runoff elections going on. So make sure that you are already registered. Make sure if you're already having early voting that you go do that. Make sure that you understand who is in your primary. Who are they and what do they stand for? How do you vote for them? What does your ballot look like? It is important that you educate yourself and then that you show up. Show up. And in order to show up and have your voice heard, you have to register to vote. So one of the ways you can find out all the information you need to find out is go to vote.gov, G-O-V as in Victor, vote.gov, or G-O-V as in voter, vote.gov, and you have all the information about how to register in your state. How early before an election you have to be registered, what information you need, all of that kind of stuff. There are still some states that automatically register you to vote, but that is not all 50. So you want to make sure that you are registered. If you're turning 18, about to turn 18, get ready, go register and take your friends. Just all go get registered. Make that the party, right? That's how you kick it off, is go get registered to vote. You can also go to ballotpedia.org. BALLOTPEDIA, ballotpedia.org, and they list all of the elections. You can also get a sample ballot. You can get sample ballots on vote.org as well. And your county boards of election, you can go get sample ballots. Go see what's on there first because it starts local. These statewide primaries are really important because we got this big vote coming in November. But it starts local. Who's on your school board? Who's on your city council? Who's your mayor? That's where it starts. Who's going to be making decisions about what's going on in the curriculum of the schools? Is it going to be teachers who actually are trained and knowledgeable? Or is it going to be some parent who decides that they know better than you how to train their kid? I'm just saying, okay? So parents need to be involved. My parents, you never knew when my parents were going to show up at school. You had to be on your P's and Q's because they might just pop up, right? So parents need to be involved, but teachers go to school to be educated, to learn how to teach a subject for a reason. They are experts for a reason. So pay attention to school boards. School boards tend to be the jumping off point for every other election. If somebody is really interested in being a political person, they'll start with the school board and then go to a city council and then go to mayor, right? It just goes from there. So pay attention local. It starts local. So go get registered, get educated about what's going on in your place. Make sure for those ballot initiatives too, that you really read them because they often write them in legal speak. And sometimes your yes means no and your no means yes. This is not a time to be embarrassed if you don't understand what they're asking you. Go ask somebody that you can trust that's not going to take their agenda and explain it to you in a way that's going to make you vote a certain way. Go get some objective explanation about what the ballot measure says. This is not a time to be embarrassed. It's okay. Half the time, the most educated folks can't figure out what it is they're trying to say, and they do that on purpose. So go get educated, go get a sample of the ballot. If there's something on there that you don't understand, go figure it out before you go vote, because your vote counts and your vote matters, right? There's still a lot of suppression trying to go on, and there are many, many people that are fighting that. Please do everything you can to make sure you are registered, that you check your registration, you check the rolls, you make sure that all of your stuff is good before the vote, okay? So make sure you do that. Also, globally, because what happens to one of us happens to all of us, globally on the 31st of this month, Senegal has a parliamentary election, okay? So that's what's going on with them, going on globally right now. Then starting in August, some of the other global elections start ramping up. So I will keep you guys up to date on that as well, as we have listeners from the continent, as well as Europe and Asia Pacific Rim, all of that. So also, if you are voting in the United States and you think you have some concerns, please go to whenweallvote.org. You can run that all together, whenweallvote.org. And there is a whole list of what your rights are as a voter. They also have these phone numbers that are your election protection hotline, okay? So 866-687-8683, that's English. 888-839-8682, that's Spanish. 844-925-5287 for Arabic. 888-274-8683, that is for the languages in the Asia Pacific Islander arena, so Tagalog, all of that, in the API number. And again, if you will go to whenweallvote.org, you can get a list of your voting rights, print it out and take it with you, right? As I mentioned last week, there is a new bill going through, actually started in the Senate. It is a bipartisan bill that is looking to close a lot of these issues around elections, including in that is federal penalties for anyone who harasses poll workers, voters, election judges, all of that kind of stuff. So they are putting some penalties in place from a federal perspective, because we have some crazy stuff happening where people can harass folks when they're going to go vote. So that is, hopefully, they're trying to get it through for August for a vote. That's in there. They're also closing a loophole that says, or clarifying the 1887 law that's still in the books, that makes it clear that the vice president's role is simply to record. They cannot overturn. They're making that clear, right? And there are a number of other things where they are closing and clarifying a lot of the things from the law that was 1887, y'all, 1887. As someone on NPR said, it's like telling everybody now, okay, you want to go across the country, go get that horse and buggy and do that. Don't take a plane, a train, or an automobile. Go take the horse and buggy. That's what we're dealing with the law that's 1887. So they are doing some things bipartisan, including you have to have more than just one person in Congress to say they don't agree with the election and can start all kinds of madness and a recount. There has to be now 1/5 or 20% have an issue, right, from both houses, in order for there to be something that happens. Now, if you have a party that just decides the whole party's upset, then that can still, happen. But at least there's some kind of threshold. People are arguing it should be higher, it should be lower. At least it's more than one at this point. So I'm cautiously optimistic that that will happen so that we can shore up some of this stuff, because we have to protect our election. The big lie was a lie. The election was not stolen. And so now we can put things in place that help bring back integrity to our system. Because, if you go and vote, and if you lose, at least if you lost fairly, okay. But if you got to cheat to win, I'm looking at you, some of our folks in Texas. If you got to cheat to win, we got an issue, right? So let's just get it all. So everybody who's eligible, every eligible voter has an ability to vote, that we do clean up the rolls, that we don't have people exercising fraud, which, by the way, with all the lawsuits, there was so little fraud, right? People aren't just taking dead people's names and voting. That's not happening in widespread, maybe one case, two at the max for the whole country. So go get registered, go vote, exercise your voice, pay attention to who's voting for what, right? Pay attention. All right. Now, also, I am trying to get an attorney to come on, because many of you who are still in organizations, I'm trying to get an attorney to come on to talk about what's going on now that Roe v. Wade was overturned and it's back to the states, and all these states are doing this really crazy stuff, even though it's my body, my choice. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. There are organizations and companies that are trying to make sure that they are giving access to all of their employees regardless. There's going to be lots of litigation coming, y'all. Lots of litigation. There's still ERISA. For those of you who are not HR people, there is a compliance. There are legal compliance rules around benefits that companies have to abide by when they're a certain level, right? A certain size. And so there's going to be a lot of litigation. We don't know what's going to happen, but there are lots of companies that are stepping up and saying, we're so sorry. Over 50% of our workplace is women. We've got to make sure that they have the right kind of access that they need. And so I'm working now to get an attorney in to come talk about what some of the companies are trying to do and what your options are. The challenge is this: attorneys that are in a company can't say anything. Attorneys that work for really big firms are having to balance how they say something but not take their client, right, be negative with their clients. So I'm trying to find someone to actually just come have a conversation about what we can kind of do, at least in this area. So stay tuned. Also getting some election judges to come. We got a lot of stuff coming. Now, here's an announcement. And y'all forgive me because I'm trying to read my handwriting because I wrote it really fast. So July is Minority Mental Health Month. For those of you who didn't know, July is Minority Mental Health Month. And so one of the ways we can honor that is by, for those of you in Houston, now this is local to Houston, although I think they're going to have a virtual. So go out and look at this. You can join Melanin Minds in Houston for their second annual mental health conference. It is this coming weekend, July 29th through the 31st. And I want you to get ready for a full weekend, which is packed with sessions, workshops, and panels, amplifying Melanin Minds in mental health professions. You can choose between 2 tracks, and you can explore 5 different pillars. Some of those are holistic mental health. You can also support local businesses while you're doing this. There's everything from meditation and emotion regulation workshops to panels on parenthood and money mindset. There's something for everybody and every generation. So bring all your folks with you. You can go to melaninminds.org, MELANIN minds, all run together.org to register. And you can register today. Please do that today. It's already Tuesday. Now, tickets start at $20 today. They may go up, right? So tickets start at $20 today, but you want to go out there and get them as soon as you can. And if you go out there and use Rutledge, so my last name, RUTLEDGE, the code Rutledge, you can get a 20% off any admission level. So go out today, get your tickets. It is local here. And then go to IG, go to Instagram and follow Melanin Minds. You can keep up to date on everything that's going on. So Melanin Minds, the mental health conference is happening this weekend, July 29 through 31. So ending Minority Mental Health Month on a big bang, local here to Houston, but I do believe they're going to have some virtual tracks. So go out there, melaninminds.org, and grab your tickets. All right. With that, we are going to jump in. I'm like, okay, 15 minutes. Okay, good. Yeah, it's usually 10 to 15 minutes. We are going to jump in, and I'm going to tell you about my guest, Diamond Young.
Hello, everyone.
I'm so excited, y'all. You know, you got to meet Legina. And so Diamond is one of the other women that I met at the Black Pod Fest in Atlanta. The one that I almost didn't go to because, you know, I'd have to talk to people. I am too. I am too. And so we got a chance to meet. We all hung out, had dinner, had lunch, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, you know what? Diamond's in Houston. Legina's in Houston. We need to make some things happen. And so Diamond Young is the founder of Diamond Unlimited, which is a podcast launch and coaching company where she provides development training tools, and digital project resources to help aspiring podcasters launch their show confidently. Now, she is also the founder and the host of the Black Directory. So the Black Directory Podcast and the Black Directory. And that is an online platform that gives you access and helps you understand all the Black businesses so you can support Black and buy Black. I was out there the other day. I'm like, there's so much stuff. She just did a post, I think, about some restaurants in Chicago. And I mean, and it's BLK. And just so you guys know, Diamond's full bio, once the show is over and the recordings are up, I will go post her full bio along with some links that you have so you can go follow her on Black Directory. So she is really, with her natural ambition and her magnetic teaching style, she really helps clients get unstuck and take their podcast and their brand to new heights. So Diamond, welcome to the Rutledge.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. And you know, what I love about having different guests on is everybody's journey. We've talked about this. Everybody's journey is different. And so I left corporate and said, I'm through, right? And started. Diamond is still in her day job. She's doing it. She's making things happen. She's making an impact. She actually is at Twitter right now. And she is making an impact for those employees that are working at Twitter. And she wanted to serve bigger. So now she's doing this podcast in this Black Directory. So maybe Diamond, talk to people a little bit about how you decided to even start a side hustle and then your vision for it being the Black Directory and the podcast coaching.
Yeah, it's just been a interesting journey, I would say. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial DNA. Like I was always drawn to it. My mom she was a cosmetologist, so she did hair all my life. So I was lucky enough to be in the salon every week. Yes. I was spoiled, and now I'm like, I don't like this life. I want to go back. But I grew up seeing her just go to work, and she didn't have a corporate job. My uncle was a celebrity chef, so he would cook for all these basketball players. So I seen it. Like I was like, okay. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'm from North Carolina. I went to North Carolina A&T, HBCU, and I was just kind of spoiled with Blackness, I would say. So I didn't know what it would be like to be kind of pulled out of that bubble. And I got my job with Twitter. So I had to move to the San Francisco Bay Area. And even though I was living in Oakland, it just wasn't what I thought it would be. And everyone that's from there says, hey, it's changed a lot. But I had trouble finding things for me, like Black doctor, Black hairstylist. And you kind of find yourself waiting kind of on that word of mouth. You're hoping you see someone Black at the office. And they're like, hey, this is where you can get, you're waiting. But I had short hair, so I'm like, who else has short hair? Like, I'm sure someone can relate.
Because it makes a difference.
It makes a difference, right? Like, okay. And it just seemed like it took a long time, like many months. And you're waiting to be put in group chats and group meet. It just was a long process. And I ran into someone that was she wasn't even from there. I think she just lived there for a few more years longer than I did. And she just started telling me stuff, and I'm writing it down. And we were having like that in-person exchange. And I thought, like, no, this isn't right, though. Like, thank you for telling me all this stuff. But I don't like that when I'm Googling things, it's not accurate, or I don't know. And I'm waiting, like, what if it takes 8 months to make friends or to really run into someone? So instead of complaining about it, I wanted to do something about it. And that is literally how Black Directory was born. So it was really me moving out of a city that I was used to, and I already knew where everything was. I didn't have to think about where a Black business is, because some cities it's everywhere, and for some cities it's like you have to really look for it. So I would say that's the where the seed was planted.
I love that, because so many times I was listening to a bunch of stuff over the weekend, and I just finished the book Stacey Abrams and Laura Hodgson, her business partner. It's called Level Up. for entrepreneurs. It's excellent. And there was so much that not only they talked about, but other people have talked about who are entrepreneurs who are like, I started this because I had a problem.
Yes.
And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. How can I fix this problem? Oh, if I fix it for me, maybe I can fix it for everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's like the impetus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. And I've had other ideas before. Mm-hmm. Again, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't find that thing that made sense. Like I would do resumes in college. I would clean people's dorms before their parents would come. I was just that girl that was always trying something like, oh, let me build you a website on Wix. Like I knew about a little about a lot. Like I was just always having my hands in things. I've always been a curious person, but my mom always said, think about the things where like you can't be the only one that's feeling this way. Yes. So this was that thing where, okay, I can be passionate about it. I'm like the person, like people are like me, like I'm Black. And again, some people are allies and they want to support. So you do have different sides to it. Mm-hmm. But either way, we all want the same solution which is how can I go to one place to find what I'm looking for? Yes. And it was just time. And around the time that I launched, it was a little bit after George Floyd's death. And it was just a shift. It was a huge shift online, in person, just with friends, family, conversations were happening. And of course, unfortunately, we've seen, situations like that happen before. But it was something about at that point, I was scrolling on Twitter, all social media platforms, and people were like, we need to support our own. And how can we do this? And I saw people, they had spreadsheets. Yes. And that said a lot to me because people didn't care about really what it looked like. They just wanted, how do I support in my city right now? And I actually wasn't ready to launch at that time. But I was like, I have to do it because I'm further along than people know. It's just been hidden. And I think sometimes that's interesting too, the timing of things. Yes. Because you can't be I can be a perfectionist. I'll talk about myself. And you just want to hold things so tight. Yeah. And you're like, it's not ready. Yeah. And you have people in your corner that's like, you're more ready than you think you are because you're going to tweak it along the way. Anyway,
yes. Done is better than perfect. Yes. Right. And so, but let's dig into that a little bit more because we've talked about so much on this show. We talk about how you're showing up. We talk about really, and I think it was last week we were talking about don't be fearless. You gotta, and that's one of the things that Stacey Abrams said. It's not about fearlessness, right? That's a lie. It's not about fearlessness. Everybody's got fear. It's what we do with that fear that makes it a tool, right? As opposed to a weapon. And so when you think about, oh man, I saw the solution and then I'm hearing all this stuff and I could see, right, the vision, right? Alignment, vision, action. I could see that people really wanted this. Oh, but I'm not ready. So what was the thing that made you finally say, you know what? We're just going to do this. Let's just do it.
I'm going to have to take a spiritual turn.
Yes, absolutely. It's that kind of show.
And God told me, and that was the first time I've heard from God before. I'm feeling emotional, but we do that too on this show. So it was just a lot going on at the time. I was contemplating if I wanted to move to Houston or not. And I was just asking God for confirmations on a few things, including sometimes you have the opportunity to do something, but that doesn't mean God told you to go do it or that it just doesn't mean that. And I was like, it's something about feeling like you have God's protection and he's kind of steering the ship because when you got on your own, you're on your own to an extent, right? So I was like, all right, God, I'm going to go on this fast. Fasting was still kind of new to me, but I was figuring it out. And I wanted to take away, because everyone fasts in a different way, but I wanted to take away social media, TV shows, anything that had me, you know?
Yes.
So I took away a few things. Maybe it was 7 days. I don't know how long it was, but I really was like, God, because sometimes I have dreams, but I hadn't had a dream in a long time. And I was like, God, you stopped talking to me.
Right.
I need you right now. Like, I'm not trying to
trying to press you or nothing,
but I knew that, like, God, I have some decisions to make kind of soon, but I really need to hear from you so I can do it in confidence. I don't want to do it like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here.
Right.
So one of those things was going to Houston because at the time Twitter said that we can work from home indefinitely.
Yes.
And I wanted to go to Houston. I was always drawn to Houston. So I was like, that's a big move though. Like just because I
Yes.
can do it, like is my mission in the Bay Area like complete?
Mhm.
Don't know. So that was
Mhm.
one part of it. And then, hey, God, this is harder than I thought, this Black Directory
Yes.
thing. I actually don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a blueprint. What if you didn't tell me to do this though?
Mhm.
What if this is all me?
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
And I was very afraid of that, like just operating all on
Mhm.
me versus
Mhm.
like, no, I have, God is with me. This is what we're
Mhm.
supposed to be doing. So I fasted and I really just went about it in a different way,
Mhm.
really included reading the Bible. Like I was trying to just touch him. Like,
Mhm.
God, what do you want me to do?
Mhm. Mhm. Burn a bush because I don't
Yeah,
read signs.
like
Yes.
I need to hear from you because I'm on a time clock with
Mhm.
decisions. And I caught myself quitting Black Director before it even
Mhm.
launched. I was like, nope. The website isn't working. I'm
Mhm.
hiring these developers and I can't get in touch with them. Everything was falling apart.
Yes.
And I think on the first or second day of the fast, he spoke to
Mhm.
me, and it was a crazy. I just never
Mhm.
experienced anything like
Mhm.
that. You hear people say like, "Oh, God told me," but I just never
Mhm.
knew.
Mhm.
And I think it's different for
For
everybody.
everyone. Mhm.
But he literally told me that he's aligned with me.
Mhm.
And that was all I needed. And I just woke up
Yes.
crying because it was like I was asleep, but not asleep.
Yes.
And I felt it's weird talking about it
Yes.
out loud, but it's like I felt a lot of pressure in
Mhm.
my mind, and it almost was like a download
Mhm. Mhm.
of it was
It's all
just
the stuff.
it was
Yes.
oh my
Mhm.
it was insane. And from there I was like, I'm never gonna question if he's with me, because even if I don't have dreams or
Mhm.
signs
Mhm.
and no
Right.
one's coming to me, I know he's there.
Right.
But
Mhm.
he said, and it was weird, it's like I was asleep, but it's like I was watching myself.
Yes.
And even though I know I was like laying
Mhm.
down, it's like I was Indian style on a laptop,
Mhm.
and I was
Mhm.
trying to type, but the words weren't coming.
Mhm.
And as I was feeling and real life that pressure, he started typing on the computer. The
Mhm.
words started coming, and I'm looking on. It's like I'm looking at me, looking
Right.
on the computer. And it says, "I'm aligned with you."
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
cried, but I had all the confirmation. That's really
Yeah.
why I never quit again, even though I may like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Right.
But it's like, oh no, if I didn't hear anything else.
Mhm.
And he made it clear because he knew I would need it in that way.
Yes. Yes.
Because I have symbolic dreams and I'm Googling
Mhm.
and trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
But that is why I decided to go for it, no turning back, even if it feels uncertain.
Yes.
Even if it feels like no one's downloading, no one's watching, no one's hearing me. I know what he said, so I'm like on this journey, even if it's like, are you sure? But it's like, I know what he said, so now I'm like, okay.
No, I love it. What I think that's what, whether it's for you, they're listening, whether it's God, the universe, whatever your thing is, it is about asking and then being still and listening. Being still and listening. And it's funny, the people that have been listening have heard this story, but in January 2019, I said, I'm going to be more visible because I'm an introvert, right? And I've got a really, really tight circle of friends that have been with me literally for years. And so I have tons of acquaintances and I love meeting new people, but I'm not a chit chatter, right? I'm not like a professional networker. That's not my thing. It takes all my energy. And in 2019, I said, but Laurel, if that if you want to serve bigger, which is very clear, that's what your purpose is, because you're coming out of corporate, everything lined up for you to be able to do this. This is where you're supposed to be. That means you've got to be more visible. You've got to be more visible. And so 2019, January, I'm going to be more visible. And I got a call to be on a radio show here in the station as a guest. And yes. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go. And I thought radio, right? So I was just gonna show. I was like, I'll just put on jeans and a t-shirt and blah blah. I was like, no, I've never met these people before. Laurel, dress up. Walked in. Jerry's like, well, there's a camera here, and I was like, camera. What? And that's when it started. And when we ended, Jerry's like, hey, I really think you need to come to the station and do a show. I'm like, let me think about it. And I went and told some other people later, some coaches I was working with then, and we were talking about. It was called Broadcast Your Brilliance, was what I was in. It was all about like media and all of that. And I said, well, yeah, I got this opportunity to do this show, and I don't know. And they're like, wait, what?
Visibility.
What? And so I called Jerry back, sent her an email and said, hey, so yeah. And Jerry's like, I knew. I was just waiting for you to figure it out,
I
right?
love it.
And now we're going into this is year 3, right, of the show. And it has been an ability to know and to connect to that vision, as you said, that vision. I was very, very young, seen myself on stages. I don't know why. And I'm not like an actress, and I'm not that. I was never the person that did plays, but I've always seen that. And so it's that you never know when it's going to show up again. You never know how it's going to show up. You never know when the time is going to be. But you got to be still and listen.
And I think that was my approach with that fast in particular, because me and my cousin, we actually went on a fast at the same time. She was in North Carolina because I told her like, hey, I may be moving to Houston. You want to move with me? Like it was just, it was crazy. But we both needed that confirmation for separate things. And she was teaching me about just waiting for God to answer and the stillness. So I was trying it, and it was just the best decision, because sometimes you pray and you're already on to the next thing, and it's just, and it's hard to be still. It is really hard. But it was just worth it, and that's what I hold on to anytime I'm confused. And I may be confused about new ventures, because I'm like, was he applying that to everything,
or just this? Right. I need a little more.
But I know for sure Black Directory is like, go ahead and operate in your purpose, you know. So, and it has been a journey, but at least I have that, which is the biggest thing that I can ask for.
Well, and when you talk about, as you said, the whole the environment that you had growing up and being very kind of surrounded by Black people, right, and having that experience, and then moving to the Bay Area, which is just not, there it was a time when there was, but the whole world has just gotten a little interesting. And then moving to Houston and thinking about the Black Directory. How did you go about, again, moving to a new place, building something that, you just posted about some folks in Chicago. How did you go about saying, here's my vision, here's what I needed, but I know it's bigger than me, but how do I connect with people? How do I do that? What was your kind of, because I talk about alignment, vision, action, right? So you had the vision. What was your movement into action? What was it that made you say, no, this is what I need to do?
Yeah. So, of course I had the spiritual confirmation. Of course I will say I'm lucky to have support from family and friends. I know everyone's story is different with that piece.
Right.
And I will like to say, and I'm sure we'll circle back, but it was a secret as far as at work. I wanted to keep them separate. I was so afraid of people finding out what I was doing, and was it going to distract me from work, which again, totally separate.
Right. Completely.
We have to circle back. But, one thing I liked about Houston was that it seemed to be filled with Black entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Because I would visit quite a lot. So it wasn't my first time coming, but I was always drawn to the city. And I kind of was ready to be in a place where I wouldn't be the first. Not saying with the app side, but just I can network with other entrepreneurs and not feel like I'm literally, it's just me. I don't like that.
Right.
Both are good experiences, and it molds you either way. But it's like with the Bay, okay, I experienced that. Because with the Bay, by the time I really came up with it, I thought of the concept in March. I think it was right around like the pandemic.
Okay, right.
Working from home. So of course, working from home, I had time.
Yes.
To be honest, I had time to really think. And it was a lot of research, because I'm not a coder. I don't code. I knew that I would need to bring in at least one more person to help develop it. So I kind of went into research mode, and then action as far as like, okay. And to this day, I use so much of, it's really funded by me. I really haven't crossed into like grants, and of course there's things I want to tap into now, but it was off of passion, like my own money, passion, me really making it a priority. And I think where Houston came in is the event side. So I always knew that Black Directory would have a podcast, but I knew I wasn't ready for it yet at this time. And this is 2020. So I knew I could see the vision as far as, okay, it's going to have apparel, it's going to have an event component with conferences and panels and all this stuff. I knew that it would have a podcast, and I knew that it would have an app. I thought the app would take 3-4 years, because I thought it was going to be just really expensive. So I started off with the website first, and then around, it may have been within the same 12 months, I started moving into an app. Like, okay, I'm going to get this app developed. At this point, I'm living in Houston now. And it was me really going on faith.
Yes.
one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It was not easy at all because I don't know about apps. I'm working with people in different places.
Yes.
And it's like another language. I can't quite, and it was hard not to be in control in that sense. Like I can't just go fix something and tweak something because this isn't my expertise. And really realizing that you have to let things go and delegate and focus on the good of the business.
Yes.
So I think where Houston came in at, which was really cool, was the event side. And that was a big thing as far as me getting out of my comfort zone. I've never hosted an event and I'm not from here. So it's not like I have my friends from school was going to come. It was really just ads, marketing, Eventbrite, trying something. And it's just really amazing when people show up to something that was an idea.
Yes.
And now it's a thing. And then eventually a little bit later, the app came and the podcast came. So just, I think one step at a time, but it's really not giving up. Just being okay with the unknown, being okay with not knowing if something is going to work or not, which I guess would relate to being okay to failure, right?
Yes. So. Well, and it's that whole, fearlessness. And there's just so much meat there. So maybe let's take this first. So when you talk about, you had this vision, knew all the pieces, but you also knew where your expertise was and where it wasn't.
Yes.
And there's such a thing. I talk to CEOs about this all the time and leaders, right? Because remember, leadership is about behavior, not about position. There is a difference in delegation and abdication. When you delegate something, you are handing it over to someone to be responsible for the execution, but you cannot hand over accountability. You're accountable, right? The Black directory is yours.
Right.
So ultimately, you are accountable for ensuring that the Black directory meets your vision. And you can delegate the responsibility for some of the actions to other people who have levels of expertise. How did you work through, because I know a lot of people, we've talked about this before, how did you work through personally? Man, this is my baby. And I know what I want it to look like. And I know, it's that sometimes it's perfectionist, but sometimes it's just protection, right? How did you work through, what? The bigger issue, as you said, it's about the business. The bigger issue is this. And if I try to do it all, I'm not going to be able to do this. What was your mindset around delegation?
And also I like to say it's your credibility too.
Yes.
It's your baby, but it's like, it's your name.
Yes. Your brand.
It's your brand. And you know what type of experience you would want if you were just someone. And it's like my bar was set so high because I've always had a creative mind and I've always had an eye for things. So I'm like, it's not that. And that really ate me up inside because it wasn't quite, what I thought it would be. And it was a lot of crying. I cried a lot. Oh man. Especially when things don't get done when you think they're going to be done. Like, this will be a 3-month project, turns into a 7-8 month project. And you're like, what is happening?
Yes.
I don't feel like
7-8 month money. Yes.
I spent a lot of money. What do I do? Like, it was just so many moments and one thing I like to touch on too with delegating, and people may look at this differently, but I still consider myself a solopreneur. I don't care how many freelancers contract. I just don't. I look at it as like, no.
Yes.
Because I feel like I hold the responsibility or the accountability. And I feel like the difference would be if I came into it with a partner from the beginning, I wouldn't call myself a solo. But because of that, if this all fails, it comes back to me. I'm the one that has to really bear it and really feel it, and it's heavy on me. People can disconnect and go on to another gig, another job, but I'm gonna be stuck to it. Like, I feel like it's my vision. So my mom is the person that really helped me to loosen up. Because she was like, Diamond, you need help. And I didn't know. I think I embraced it more too, because I knew that I was balancing a full-time job, and I knew that's something that was the difference. And I always envied people that were full-time entrepreneurs, because I'm like, that's what I want, but everyone's story is different and everyone's path is different. And it doesn't mean you're not going to get there, but it's like, okay, this is where I am now. And I think I was at Twitter for a reason, and I have to trust, because that's a different story too of how I got there. And I know for a fact that was God for sure, because I applied and didn't remember applying. Right. And this is
Right.
like, at this point, I'm at North Carolina A&T. I'm doing my MBA program.
Yes.
I got laid, like when I graduated undergrad, I went to West Palm Beach, another place that wasn't Black.
Right.
That was my first
Not
kind
West
of
Palm Beach.
experience. Got laid off, came back to North Carolina, which was really hard because you're like, I just made it out. I just had my first apartment.
Now
like,
I'm back home.
Oh man. So I never wanted to go to grad school, but a close family friend said, no, I think you need to do this. Even entrepreneurs can learn more. So she kind of changed my perception. So I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, I'll go back to A&T. I applied to some internships. I had an internship with Union Pacific, the railroad company. So I was like, okay, I don't know. This is kind of random, but they were at the career fair. Shout out to them because they were like, yep, we want you to come. And I was set to go that summer.
Yes.
I just don't remember applying to Twitter for an internship. And I think it's because I didn't see any HR roles.
Right.
But apparently I applied to an executive office internship. Didn't know what that was.
Right.
So that's why I don't remember it.
Right.
So it turns out that they reached out to me. I applied, say, in like August, September. They reached out in December, but it went to spam. So I never knew. It kept reaching out, went to spam. Never knew, right? So March comes. Yeah, I don't even know how many months. It's like later. March comes, I'm in class, and I get a message from Twitter, and I'm like, why are they messaging me?
Right.
Like, what's happening? And it was a recruiter that was like, hey, we would love to interview you. Like, and really now in hindsight, the applications were already closed. Twitter already,
that was nothing but
they already select their interns in March. March, they're already giving you your letters, like it's over. But they reached back, even though I never responded because it went to spam. So once they reached out, I went to look and I saw it went to spam. It was a 2-week process, and next thing you know, and again, I'm like, what is this for? And they said, oh, you'll be the intern for the CEO of Twitter. And I'm like, I applied to that? Right. What is happening? So I always like to tell that story because I know I was meant to be at Twitter. I just didn't know why. I didn't know for how long, which is why I was so scared leaving the Bay Area because I'm like, I know God sent me there. But really, I think he sent me there to get the seed.
Absolutely.
The seed for sure, because I think I'm meant to be in Houston too. So I think it's just, that alignment. And I forgot what the question was.
No, it's good. Because it was really about how did you then take that vision, right, and actually move into that action as you thought about, what you were going to do and how you were going to
delegating
do it.
and everything.
And delegating.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that to say I was bouncing this job that I'm like, I don't think God told me to leave it. But my mom was the one that was like, hey, you have a full-time job. You're going to get overwhelmed. You have to keep Twitter because that's where you were supposed to be as well. And so she was the one that was really coaching me and helping me like, okay, let's try to find a web designer, someone to manage the site. Let's try to find an assistant. Let's try. And we piece it together to where eventually I could kind of, because I did have to balance my job too.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the key piece, you said something that was really important for entrepreneurs because also having come out of HR, right? I don't want employees ever. I don't, that's not something I want. Right. And part of, and this is something that I knew, but it's that one of my podcasts was, did you hear what you just said? Right. Sometimes we don't hear what we say because our brains are focused on talking as opposed to listening. And, I always said, I don't want employees. But there was a thing in this book that I read that said, you know what, you got to think bigger when you're starting a business, because what do you want it to be? What do you want the legacy to be? When you're done, what do you want to have left? Right. And I started thinking about that and I was like, well, that's a good question, because when I'm done, for me, at least right now, my business is done. Am I okay with that? And I'm like, you know what? I am, because the impact I want to make is different, right? Okay. I want to have an impact in education. I want to have an impact. My legacy is going to be through the people that I support, not necessarily that the podcast lasts forever after me or that I have, multiple hosts. Or it looks different. But it was a very interesting question, because I don't know that I had actually thought about that directly. Like I had in periphery, because again, coming out of HR, I understand the whole people thing. And I coach entrepreneurs about, okay, I'm ready to put on team, and here's how you put on team. Here's how you do interviews. Here's how you got to think about this, right? There's a strategy around people. But as Diamond was saying, even if you've decided you don't want employees, you are going to have assistants.
Yep. You need a system too.
you've got to have a system and you've got to have assistance. And so in order to do that, you've got to be able to let some things go, and you've got to set very clear expectations for yourself and for the people that you're going to be working with. Because as you said, you get, a web designer, or you get somebody who's a coder, you get all these things. And it's like, okay, here were my expectations, but this is what I got. And those two don't match. So now what am I going to do?
And it's weird, like on the corporate side, you don't have a management role, but you really are managing people outside. So you have no training. And it's hard because I'm not an expert in what they do. I can know something isn't meeting a bar, but I'm not in control of it all at the same time. And it is a very weird experience that I hate so much. But I really do see the value in having a team and delegating, especially when you have the right people. I think that's like in any instance, you want the right team, the right people. And something that was cool when I started bringing on a team, my mom wanted to be a part of the interviews, but I love that she did it because she was just asking like really good questions to really get a sense of, are they aligned with the brand or are they just want to, because it does make a huge difference as far as how people show up.
It does.
And the effort. And of course I can have some peace because it's like, oh, okay, at least I know they understand what's going on. And when I think about what you were saying, like what do I want when this is all said and done? But I do want it to last beyond me. When I'm gone, I want it to keep running. Just like we have our NAACPs and just things that are a part of our community. I want it to have a large reach and impact. I want to create a legacy, of course, generational wealth and things like that. But because I don't know, I've been in both shoes as far as a consumer just looking for Black businesses, and I'm the entrepreneur as well that wants more exposure, which I think is the best of both worlds. And it's like, I know what visibility means for us in our community. And if I can be a part of helping businesses become more visible than they were yesterday, like that's what I want. So I need this to keep going because it's not about just me. Like we're so beyond that.
Servant leadership. Y'all heard me say this. It's not about you. If your leadership is not about you, and servant leadership absolutely is not about you. It's about the people you serve, right? And I think what's important about this conversation is for those of you who are trying to decide what to do, what does legacy mean to you? What does legacy mean to you, right? Like the Black Directory, having that continue to be visible, to be a key piece of the community, as you heard Diamond say, that's like the Urban League, right? Like the NAACP, to have it be something that exists beyond her. That's the legacy, right? That she wants to leave, a piece of it, right? Because I'm sure it's bigger than that, but a piece of it. For me, it's a legacy through all the people that I've helped, right? I don't necessarily, now, given that it's just me and my brother and neither one of us have kids, I would love the Rutledge name to live on through something. But for me, I'm thinking, that could be in scholarships and things like that are education, right? So the legacy is just a little bit different. And so it's important for those of you who are listening to decide, to actively decide, what do you want your legacy to be? Because legacy is different for everyone.
It is.
And when we think about legacy, we tend to think big. We tend to think big money. We tend to think sometimes legacy is just a really good name.
That's true. That's actually, you're right.
It's a good name, right? It is that, you know what? I'm doing business with you because I know your dad or your granddad or your mom.
Which is incredible when you see that. It's really incredible. I was watching recently the Janet Jackson documentary. I had never watched it when it first came on.
Yeah, me neither.
But now it's on Hulu. I binged it.
Yep.
But she was saying, of course, it was a blessing and a curse with their family in particular. But it was cool that when you hear that Jackson name, you know who it is. That is like impact in that sense.
Yes. And so we're going to be doing some shout outs here in a minute. But before we do that, I want to kind of go back to what you were saying. So when we've talked about on the show, we've got people who are, good morning, Legina. We have been talking about, kind of people who are in a career right now, and what they're looking at doing is potentially their thing is they really want to move up. That's what they want to do, or transition, but they still entrepreneurship in their thing, but they really want to do bigger or better or different in what they're doing. And then we've got people who are, you know what, I'm just doing this to invest in the thing I'm going to do full time. And then you got people in the middle, right, who are working their full time and then trying to do this thing that's ultimately going to be built. And all in between, we've got all the gamut.
Right.
So for you, for someone who is currently working their job, right, and thinking about that as no, I'm learning here, I'm investing. What is your advice to someone who is doing a full time and trying to invest full time in a side hustle? How do you balance that? What is your perspective on those two things? How does that work for you, and what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking at doing it that way?
Well, one thing for sure is what we talked about, which is delegation. I really don't think you can do it effectively by yourself. You're going to hit a wall. So if you are in this case, if you hit a wall, that's normal, I believe. So just go ahead and be ready to pivot as far as, okay, how can I get help? And help could come from family. It could come from actually delegating, like finding a virtual assistant. I think it depends.
Yes.
And of course you have systems, like, so that's a layered conversation as far as like how to, make your life easier. But I don't know, it's so tricky because I think each job is different. But I guess I can break it up. So money wise, you definitely want to come up with a budget plan, because I was just spending, like, I didn't have a business card yet at the time, business bank account. I was just swiping, and my mom, again, shout out to mom.
Right.
She was like, yeah, you need to separate this. You need to have a budget. Like, don't just like make it make sense. So I really was like, okay, every 2 weeks, every paycheck, $200 is going towards this business bank account just to, get some funds over there. So I think have a plan money wise, because the lines could get really blurred.
Yes.
Because that's your job. And of course your rent has to be paid and all that kind of stuff, or mortgage. But think about a financial plan and how you want to approach that. Even if you don't know what the money is going to be needed for yet, if you're in the very beginning, you want to start putting money to the side so that you have some options. Or again, the money can help with delegating and hiring and bringing on somebody. I think another thing that I had to go through more on the mentality side is I had to stop looking for happiness at work.
That's good.
And I had a good conversation with someone, because I just remember, again, the culture shock in a new city. I'm like, is this a role for me? I don't know. Like, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I already knew that.
Right.
But I knew I wasn't ready to take that kind of leap, or I needed to get structure with the business. It just wasn't time.
Right.
And it was very hard for me to not resent one or the other, like really kind of find a way to embrace both experiences at the same time, because it was a mental battle, I would say, because you don't want to do anything prematurely and like, I quit, I don't want. But it's like, no, like, and someone told me at work, like, she was like, I think where you're going wrong is you're looking for work to make you happy. You keep trying to look in the system and find the perfect role, but really for you, there may not be a perfect role, and you have to be okay with that. And she was saying, it's okay as long as you find what you're looking for outside of work. And that was when a light bulb went off, and I was no longer, because I feel like my attitude was different at work. I was wearing it. I wasn't happy. And that was not fair to my team, because what do they have to do with that? Like, everyone's there to do a job. And once I realized that, like, I internalized what they said and that advice, I was really good ever since, from a mental health standpoint of like, you know what, I don't know how long this chapter is going to go on, but I know God put me here, so I'm going to embrace it and show up the best way I can. But I'm going to put my all into this business, because I know for a fact that's what makes me happy.
Yes.
But the delegating is what made me like kind of sane, because you can be passionate all you want to, but if you're overwhelmed, burnt out, what is sleeping? You can't get to that good part. So I say make a plan as far as money and how to start funding your business. Utilize your weekends and nights and whatever you have to do, because it's going to take an investment of your time regardless, even if you delegate, and just embrace where you are. It's easy to think about, well, why am I not living this person's life, or they're doing it full time, and when am I going to get there? You will really drag yourself down being stuck there personally, because I've done it. So now I'm in a place where I'm like fully embracing the journey that I'm on.
That, y'all, I really want you to listen to this last piece. When you go do the replay and you send it to your friends who are like, you need to listen to this conversation, because again, I was in HR a very long time and I've been coaching people forever, right? Even when I was in professional services at Deloitte, it's just been a part of who I am. And there's a few things that Diamond just said that I do not want you guys to lose. Number one, that's why I call it the Rutledge perspective, right? You got to put your day job in perspective, any job in perspective. Is that job truly what builds you up. It's where you want to invest all of your resources, time, energy, and money. It is the thing that you really are invested in. Those of you who want to be CEOs of Fortune 500, that's probably you, right? Just know that. Understand where that job fits, and understand that sometimes where the job fits is simply an investment in the thing you really want to do, because that enables you to put the right perspective on it, so you're not miserable, because you're not expecting to be excited and happy and fulfilled and all that. You got to manage your own expectations.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. I'm like, yes, manage your expectations. You have to manage your emotions as well. I mean, that's just in general. We all have to manage our emotions, our expectations, and making sure that you're not carrying that, because people can see it and they can feel it. So I think that's super important. And again, I think I mentioned it earlier. For a while, it was a secret too. And again, I'm not telling everyone to do this, because everyone has a different work environment. But it was to the point where it was such a secret that it carried a weight on me. And I'm like, and I knew I couldn't have private pages, because that messes up what I'm trying to do.
Right.
So you're like, and if anyone you're looking, I love you. But it's like you're like blocking people before they could find you. It was so, but because I work at Twitter, I wasn't even using my Twitter, which wasn't fair to me.
Exactly.
And it was becoming so like insane.
Yes.
And I finally decided, because I had this idea of the worst case scenario, which never happens usually.
Right.
And when I tell you, I finally told the team, like, hey, so my spare time, I have an app in our business and I support Black-owned business. They were so proud. They were so happy. They love hearing about it all the time. Like, how's the podcast going? How's the app going? Like, and they all feel inspired. They're like, wow, like, how do you even manage this outside of work is usually the first question.
Yes.
Like, how are you doing this? But, and again, it could have went another way. So that's why I'm like, take this with a grain of salt. But that was the best decision that I've ever made, because I've had such a big pour of support, whether it's, hey, what's your show called? I want to subscribe. And I feel free, because it really drained me and took a toll on me to keep it
Absolutely.
separate.
And so I'm going to put my HR hat on for you guys. For those of you who are in organizations, a lot of times you'll sign an employment agreement, not a contract. In the US, we don't do contracts unless you're in a union, but an employment agreement. And sometimes they'll have an employment agreement language in there about devoting 100% of your time to the business, blah, 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 moonlighting, all of that. Make sure you read your agreement. That's number one. You have to read your agreement before you sign it. But the other thing is, most of the time, they'll say something like, if you're going to start another business, you have to let us know. And they'll only get really upset if it is like adjacent or could potentially be competitive. So if you are working somewhere that's building cars and you are starting something that's doing hair, that is not competitive. So try not to get yourself all stirred up when you know the business is not competitive. Now, if you're in HR and you're starting HR consulting, that could be a problem, right? Because where are you getting your clients? Are you now charging other employees on the side? What are you doing? So for those of you who are in organizations starting a side hustle, read your employment agreement, see if there's some kind of moonlighting kind of clause, or there's some kind of clause, especially if you're in an executive level, where you have to disclose if you are starting or invested in another business. Because sometimes, especially if it's publicly traded, you have to disclose that, because it's an SEC problem, right? If you don't. So read your agreement before you get yourself all turned up in knots, because it's likely okay. And then make a definitive decision around who and when you're going to tell. Right. And you might have to start with legal counsel, again, depending on your level in the organization and how close the business you're starting is to what you do every day. But don't automatically assume it's going to be a challenge. Don't turn yourself in knots like Diamond did. Right. And we all do it. She's not the only one.
Please don't.
Stop. Read the agreement. Look at what you do every day versus what you're working to do, and see if there's no connect at all. Tell them and keep it moving.
And that's what's crazy. I knew there wasn't a connect. Mine was more so the fear of, if my performance went down, are they going to attach it to
the business?
That was my I knew for a fact Twitter wouldn't be mad. It's a lot of people that have side hustles at work. But it was more so, okay, is this going to be used against me, or if,
and that's real.
you don't want to be judged as far as if your performance happens to go down. Like some people's performance is up, down, like normal people. But I didn't want it to be like, well, it's because you're not focused enough. Like,
right.
That was so I just want to put that out there. That was what made me keep it a secret for as long as I did, but not, like you said, I knew that it wouldn't be competitive or anything like that. It was just the fear of, I think we're taught, especially with Black people, separate, personal from work. Don't go there telling them their business, like, because
they can't use it against you, and it's a real experience.
Yeah,
it's a real experience.
So I didn't want to set myself up,
exactly,
but it was really taking a toll on me.
And you do have to manage your experience. And your performance. You really do. You have to manage your performance. You have to know what organization you're in, and if you're in a toxic environment, you might need to just be silent and just do your thing.
Read the room.
You've got to do you. So again, I'm not giving anybody legal advice. I always say consult an attorney, consult a financial advisor, but don't give yourself a worst case scenario first that paralyzes you. Just understand where you are. Understand where you are, what environment you're in. We'll leave it there. And what works for you. Yes.
Because it's going to vary. You have to know your environment and what's the norms and things like that. And what's crazy is I knew I had a supportive team.
Yes.
I knew that, but it was just me in my own head. I think everything happened in the way it was supposed to. So no regrets, but fill out your environment, do your research, know if it's competitive or not, so you can take the right actions from there.
Absolutely.
And you'll be surprised. I'll leave it that way. Some people are really there to support you.
They are. Well, we're going to do some shout outs, or if there's any questions that came through. Thank y'all. This has been such a good conversation. We can talk for another 2 hours.
From Cynthia, Dr. Hickman says, why is pay discussion an issue?
Why is pay discussion an issue? I'm not sure either.
That must have been earlier.
Probably earlier. And Dr. Cynthia, once something comes out of my mouth, I can't remember what I said.
And mostly everybody's just listening.
Yeah. Okay, good.
We have Mexico, United Kingdom, Argentina, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Portugal, France, Germany, Finland.
I love it.
Nuremberg, Doncaster, St. Louis, Lisbon, and Helsinki in triple numbers on today.
Love it.
You got New York, you got Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, San Antonio, Chicago, Kansas City, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Also have Missouri City in today. Acres Home in the building on today, and Beaumont, Texas.
Love it. Thank y'all so much for tuning in for this amazing conversation with Diamond Young, the founder, leader, builder, developer of BLK Directory. Y'all keep your eyes and ears open, right? It's blowing up. So please go and support her. When I post the replay, I will post her full bio and you'll have links to it. They can follow you on Diamond Unlimited on IG.
For my personal Diamond Unlimited _, which you'll see more of podcast tips. That's where I'm going now, is coaching people on how to start their own podcast. Confidently, because it's scary using your voice and putting yourself out there. So Diamond Unlimited with that. And then everything else is BLK Directory, BLK Directory. That's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're blowing up on TikTok. It's so much fun.
Oh, good. Yeah, I still cannot. There's just too many platforms, man. Too many platforms. But like you said, that's part of my investing in somebody else to go take all this video I have, go create some little TikToks and stick them out there, because I just can't.
Reaching people in a different format.
Exactly. So. Use your resources wisely. So thank you all so much. I know we're a little bit over. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Rutledge Perspective radio show live here in Houston, Texas. KCOH TV Radio, The Boost, on the corner of Alameda and Wichita in the historic 3rd Ward. I'm so glad you were here spending this Tuesday morning with me. Thank you so much to Diamond Young for being here. And Gina, thank you so much for your comments. And for everyone that I didn't see, because I don't always see all the comments come through, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody on Alexa and TuneIn and the KCOH page. I love being here with you on Tuesdays. We will be back again next week. We are doing some amazing things going forward. Thank you globally. NYC, I'm on my way to see you. Portugal, we're going to make something happen. All of you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.